Hello, beautiful people. I'm Chris Maddox. I'm the founder of the Wild Woman Project and Wild Woman Fest. And I'm speaking to you today because I always speak to you at new moon time, and the new moon is upon us. So the new moon arrives on Saturday, November 18th, in the astrological sign of Scorpio. Scorpio is a pretty provocative kind of energy. Scorpio is a water sign. It's deeply, deeply feminine. It has everything to do with sort of the taboo, the underworld, the things that we don't tend to talk about, the things that we don't tend to say. It is erotic in nature, sort of wildish and creative. I often think about the Hindu goddess Kali when I think about the Scorpio archetype. So this astrological placement is a source of inspiration, should we want it, should you want it, this new moon. And this astrological archetype has inspired our theme of the moon cycle here at the Wild Woman Project. So just to give you a little bit of the scope, this is our third moon cycle of the In the Flesh series, which is an exploration we're doing all year, culminating at the annual Wild Woman Fest in August 2018. So in this year, cycle by cycle, we are focusing on certain areas of our body and certain areas of our physical experience as women with the intention to really shift out of a way of being in relationship to ourselves that is inherently full of objectification, as in we kind of have a way of relating to ourselves where we're constantly thinking about how we look. So in a sense, we're thinking about how we're appearing from the outside in. And what we're trying to do this year at the Wild Woman Project is to shift that orientation and to really, as women, come deeper into our physical experience and our physical bodies, so that as we walk through our lives, as we move through our lives, we're actually deeply in tune with the internal experiences that we're having emotionally, physically, energetically, the ebb and the flow of the inner life, so that we're actually living in the world using our precious energy and our precious attention to be firmly anchored in our own skin versus objectifying ourselves as the culture has objectified us for thousands of years. So this is actually, getting pretty radical. And it seems very simple. It's like, of course, we have a body. Of course, we live in our body. But a lot of times we're in our mind, and with our perception, we're leaving our bodies in different ways. So this moon cycle, to dive back into sort of the present, and our intention for this moon cycle, which begins on November 18th and ends on December 17th, this period of time, our theme is reclaiming our blood, primal magic, primal waters. So we are turning our attention specifically towards our menstrual blood, regardless of whether we are in our actively bleeding years or not. Bleeding and our menstrual cycle is a huge part of a woman's life and a woman's experience in her own body. So we're going to be focusing on not only the blood, but the reproductive system, on the genitals, and all of the intricate parts that contribute to this process of menstruation, this cyclical kind of bleeding that is a part of each and every woman's lives at some point for a long stretch of time. So that's really the center of our focus. So at this new moon time, in our Wild Woman Project circles that are happening all over the globe, and in the digital Your New Moon retreat with me, we are actively initiating an exploration of what is our relationship to our own blood. What is our relationship to our reproductive system? what is our relationship to our genitals? And all of the themes that have to, that sort of sit in those areas. You know, one of the, I think, the most amazing creative act in this physical world is what happens inside the body of a woman when she is growing a human being inside of her. I don't understand why we don't constantly just talk about this all the time. I can't believe that we don't just like drop to our knees in front of a pregnant woman who is growing a human being inside of her. This is the most essential, the most primal, the most awe-inspiring creative act imaginable as a human being on the earth. And the process that we go through in our bleeding years, whenever we go through this cyclical bleeding, what is happening is that every single, cycle, however long your cycle is, for each of us it's different, every single cycle, we have this opportunity as we bleed to remember that we have this most amazing capacity to grow a human being inside of us. And every time it comes around, let's say when a woman doesn't bleed and she's actually carrying a child, that blood that would have come out at the bleeding time is now part of the life-giving creative process of the growing of the child inside of her. This is amazing. Sometimes I want to pass out when I think about it. It's so amazing, and I don't think we make a big enough deal about it. So it's one of the great tragedies in our culture that this amazing gift, this evidence of magic that women carry, right, has been somehow spun that it's a curse, that it's, sort of inconvenient at best. Inconvenient, something that makes a woman, unstable, or, she must have her period, comments like that. When a woman is exhibiting behavior that isn't what that person wants it to be. There is a collective criticism, judgment that the culture has been holding for a very long time. Now, this has not always been the case, and is not the case for every culture. A lot of indigenous tribes actually consider this to be, bleeding time, to be a very sacred time, where women actually leave their tribes and go and have solitude. It's a time for her to gather spiritual energy, and even in some cases to receive visions, so that she can therefore come back to her community and say, here's what I saw. This is the insight that came in at this sacred time. So there are a myriad of ways to be in relationship to our blood. And for each of us, we're maybe at a different place with this inquiry. You may be sort of like on the my blood is amazing train, and you may have been on it for a long time. For many of us, like, we've already been tracking our cycles and learning about the different phases within our menstrual cycle, and maybe studying some of the mythology around, some of the positive mythology around blood and the menstrual cycle. And some of us are very new to even questioning this. Some of us might feel like uncomfortable to be talking about our blood and talking about our vaginas. So I think be really allowing of where you are in this process. And it's a unique process for every single woman to begin to look at these questions, to look at this function of her body. And I think for those of us who have been on the train for a while, beware, thinking you are at the end of the line in terms of what's possible to be discovered here. Go deeper. And we're going to be helping this moon cycle, by the way. We're going to be offering a ton of resources this cycle. All of our circles have this theme. The new moon retreat has this theme. We're going to do a Wild Woman School based around this theme. We're going to offer Wild Woman Weekly-ish resource articles and, all sorts of ways in which you can begin to go deeper and to engage. So engage in this exploration, which is really, really, really important. Because the more we feel shame or hiding or a sense that the reality of our anatomy is somehow a curse or a distraction or an inconvenience, we are turning away from something that has the potentiality to be an enormous gift in our inner life, in our process, in our physical reality. So this is our invitation to you this cycle. And we really hope that you'll start to turn towards your own blood and to be in process around that. To really dive in to this exploration personally. Like to perhaps take it on for this moon cycle, which is our invitation to you, is a kind of revolutionary act. Because women have been enslaved, like in their own minds, by thinking that their period is a dirty word. We have been trapped in that limited oppressive consciousness. And as we sort of like unlock this door in the menstrual cycle and our relationship to our reproductive system and to our genitals is like a lock. And the more we kind of, with our intention, open that lock and open that door, there's a world of discovery in there. And the more we discover, and the more we befriend ourselves and our blood and our uterus and our vagina and our clitoris and all of this important creative sustenance, the more the consciousness collectively begins to shift around this. And the more women move away from feeling shame about the reproductive capacities of their bodies, the more the creativity of women unlocks, both in the in terms of human beings, but some of us women have chosen not to have a physical baby in this life, and yet have access to that abundant creative potential. So as you're doing this, as you're unraveling this, as you're unlocking that door and opening it and walking around and seeing what's going on for you, it's a revolutionary act. And it's a contribution to our collective consciousness and the shift that is emerging now. If you haven't noticed, there is a radical shift emerging now, centered around women's bodies. I'd like to read to you a quote from Dr. Christiane Northrup from her amazing book, Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom. She writes, "Nothing in our society, with the exception of violence and fear, has been more effective in keeping women in their place than the degradation of the menstrual cycle." So, dear ones, if you want to take on this exploration with us, we're here to support you. You can join us for a circle this new moon. If there's not a circle near you, or you just happen to want to be in your own personal process around this, you can download right now your new moon retreat with me. And in each of those experiences, you'll have the opportunity to reflect really deeply on your relationship to your blood, to your body, and to create some powerful intentions for the cycle ahead. I'm wishing you a rich, deep exploration this new moon and this moon cycle. And as always, always see you over at thewildwomanproject.com.